right. Hey, welcome to Military Monday, ClearedJobs.Net Military Monday. Today is May the 19th, 2025, and we are going to be talking about some government contracting terminology. I'm so excited about this class because I think these are the types of things that a lot of veterans just don't know what they don't know. And we've got an expert in this field, my buddy Jeff Carson, the military veteran talent outreach guy from Peraton. Jeff has been on a Military Monday a while back with us, a good friend of mine. We've worked together. Jeff, welcome to Military Monday.
Thanks, Bob. Glad to be back.
Yeah, man, this is great. As if you're watching us live, by the way, if you want to join us in the comment section, you want to let us know what's going on. It could be as basic as saying who you are, where you're at, when you're getting out, what service are you in. If you've got specific questions, if you throw a question out there and we get a chance to answer it, if it fits in, we'll bring it up in the topic. And if not, we can answer it offline as well. Like we said, today we're going to be talking government contracting terminology because there's a lot of different words and phrases that are out there, some of which you may know, some of which you don't know. Jeff, you put this together actually even before we were talking what to do. This is a kind of a project of yours, right?
Yeah, I mean, I attend a lot of different sessions. Most of them are transitioning veterans, and we always tend to have a lot of questions on panels and stuff like that, and they're just really questions that anybody transitioning out of the military would want to know, because I didn't know them myself. So when I first transitioned, so I kind of learned along the way by doing this job and just working for different companies, and so I just figured this is a good little tool. Some information. I think anybody that's transitioning, it gives you the basics of what these terms mean.
Yeah, and just to kind of set the stage, Jeff, you're obviously a veteran yourself. You've been at Peraton. How long have you been at Peraton now?
7 years. I've been here almost. September will be 8 years, so it seems like just yesterday. But
yeah, and you were an Army guy by trade before that, right?
I am an Army retired veteran. I've been in talent acquisition now for about 17 years, focused on DoD. Contract companies, and when I kind of got my footprint, probably about my second job out of the military in focusing on transitioning veterans. It seems to be this is it's an evolving door. Veterans are always exiting the military, and so I partner with a lot of different organizations such as the TAP offices and many other of our organizations that support veterans with their transition.
Yeah, I was in the Navy for 20 years. I got out in 2014. This is the only job I've really had since we got out. But Jeff and I have talked in the past about we see some of the the same people coming through, and little. We were talking about how little we each knew about government contracting when we first got out. But now that we've been swimming in this for a while, we've picked it up and we're trying to share it with. But anybody coming out, there's so much to know, and a lot of people just don't know, like we said, what they don't know, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember my last assignment before I retired. I was at HRC, Human Resource Command, as an assignment manager. And I had contractors working all over the building. And I had one probably 2 cubicles from me. And he's a great guy, saw him every day, talked about normal stuff, but I never really only thing his title was the contractor over there, the contractor. And we never really knew, I didn't know who he worked for. I didn't really know what he did. I know he worked in the building. I worked in some capacity with us, but the details of what he did. And after I got out, I was like, wow, I worked around contractors and I never asked any questions about what they do and who they work for and how they get a job as a contractor. Just went about my day-to-day, as a soldier doing my job. And so I look back now, I probably should have been asking questions.
No, we're going to talk about some terms here because these terms are things that you might hear. You actually, you bring it up. You might hear these terms where the contractors working next to you might talk about stuff. And, now you might have a better idea of what they're talking about. And certainly, I would say if you've got a guy next door to you or a girl next door to you, ask those questions. But these are also some terms, Jeff, that veterans might hear, or they might not even hear, but these are going to be factors that are going to determine how the job hunt's going to go, right?
Right. I mean, even when I do many of my sessions, I'll ask the question, how many of you understand what defense contractors mean? What do you think that means to be a contractor, prime or sub? Very few hands go up. Usually it's some senior person that's worked with contractors, but generally I'd probably say about 10% of the hands that go up that really understand how what it means to be a contractor.
Yeah, and we're not going to cover everything. We're going to cover a good number, and we're going to try to keep this to about 30 minutes. Again, if you're joining us, if you've got any questions as we're going, let us know in the comments, or if you want to let us know when you're getting out, what branch you are, that kind of thing. But let's kick this off, Jeff. The first big topic here is RFP, which really stands for Request for Proposal. What is this and why is it important?
Well, basically what it is, it's a call to companies. It's a public announcement to DoD contractors for them to actually place their bid on a particular contract, a requirement, some type of support that the government's needing. And so when they when they submit their proposal, they're submitting background about their companies. And part of the request for proposal, it's gonna give a broad array of exactly what the government's looking for: the size of the contract, what types of positions, clearance levels, locations, so forth. And so companies, put their best foot forward. How much money that it's going to take to execute that contract, and so forth. So and the work only starts if the company wins. So when a company is submitting a request for proposal, they're all with the anticipation of being awarded the contract or being part of a larger contract, being a subcontractor.
Yeah, and with the RFP type stuff too, you talk about how they've got to put their best foot forward. A lot of the government contractors have to be able to show that they can find people, right? So when the recruiter's talking to you and they're looking at your resume and they're doing the RFP thing, it doesn't mean they have the work, but they've got to be able to show it. So your ears should kind of perk up if you start to hear that this company's talking to you because they're putting together an RFP, right?
Right. In some cases, the customer, which is the government, they may require you to provide some resumes to show that you can actually execute the contract, to find people to fill these roles, to do what they need them to do. So in some cases, they may ask you to make some changes. They may make some edits. And in some cases, they may require for you to sign a letter of commitment showing that you're going to accept a position if they're awarded the contract. In some cases, if that's a requirement.
A lot of people this goes back to people say, when should I start looking for a job? I'm not getting out for so many months. If a company has a direct need right now, they may not want to talk to you because if you've got 9 months left in the Army or the Navy or something like that, but a company that's working on an RFP, they're looking forward.
Yes.
So that's a good discussion that you can have while you're still in. I mean, that can be a very valuable tool to be making those connections with recruiters and companies that are doing this work, because maybe those things are going to line up with your EAS, right?
It can, exactly, Bob. And so many cases, some veterans will be a little bit hesitant to engage a recruiter that says, "Hey, this is a proposal." But I let veterans know, and transitioning veterans, it's okay to engage recruiters if it's a contract that's not been awarded yet and it's 9, 10, 12 months out, because typically that's how long, in some cases, it takes for some of these contracts to be awarded. The government has to look at all of the different proposals that's been sent forth with all these companies. They compare them. They look at the dollar amount, past performances, a lot of different things that go into play when it comes to them making a decision on what company they're going to be awarding the contract to.
Yeah.
So it's okay for them to engage with them. It's pretty smart to do so.
I say no conversation's a bad conversation when you're getting ready to get out. Next topic here, statement of work. It might be abbreviated SOW, but you do hear statement of work. And I know that this has a lot to do with the job descriptions and what they're looking for. And so break this down for us, Jeff.
It is. The statement of work it's a guidelines as to what type of people that can be added to a particular contract requirement, such as the clearance level, education level for each position. So when, for example, when applicants are applying for a position, and say if it's even a proposal, and they say, well, hey, I'm a good fit for this position, but I only have a secret clearance. And that in the statement of work, it may say that that particular contract or that particular position requires a TSSCI. That's kind of some guideline stipulation that's put into place by the government that most companies just can't override that. And so it's plain out, it's spelled out really plain and written out by the government as to what types of applicants that can be hired for that particular position.
Yeah, so this is what really can sometimes tie the hands of a company. You've won the contract, and I know a lot of veterans say, well, but I could do it if they could just train me, or why can't I do this if I won't have that? this is what takes it kind of out of your hands as a recruiter, right, Jeff?
Yes, and we got to emphasize that sometimes, and even sometimes some of our partners, they'll say companies need to do a better job as far as sponsoring service members for these clearances. But in the statement of work, in many cases, it requires us for on day one for this particular employee to have that clearance level. So it's not always the company that's making that. It's usually the customer. So I always tell people, don't be mad at the recruiter or the company. They would love to hire you and bring you on board. You may have the qualifications, but it may be something, not only just clearance, it may require a certain level of education. They may say you must have
certifications.
It may say you need a master's degree, or it requires some type of IT certification. That's part of the requirement in the statement of work that the companies have to adhere to.
Yeah, that's a big one. That is definitely one of the big ones, and that's the frustration part. And I know that there's nothing you can do about it, but I think as a job seeker, if you can at least understand the why, it can at least help you on things. So we talked about when they are looking they want to win a contract. The government, the company wants to win it. They do the request for the proposal. They get the statement of work. But sometimes they win a contract, and all of a sudden the company wins a contract, but they didn't win the contract. They have this contract rebid and recompetes and stuff. Number one, this is a pain in the butt for you guys, isn't it? For everybody involved. But tell us about why this happens and what it really is.
Yeah, contract rebid or recompetes. It's a stressful time for companies. It's when, for example, say Peraton has been awarded a 5-year contract, and now they're currently in year 4 of that contract. The government is going to put that out for rebid. The incumbent company, which is a company that has the contract, they're kind of the front runner unless they've really had some issues with the government as far as problems executing, so forth. But if they've been doing pretty good job for that first 4 years, they're kind of the front runners. So when that contract comes up for rebid, all of the other companies that are interested in it, they can also put their contract bid in to try to literally, in layman's terms, take that contract away from that current company. So while they're under that contract rebid and recompete, the incumbent company has to also put in why they should still be awarded this contract. They have to put in, their proposal to why they should be awarded. So contracts all expire. Now, when it comes to you being awarded, you being being working for the company that currently has the contract. If the contract is re-awarded to that current company, you pretty much still have a job. Contract goes along, you're still working. But it's a stressful time because employers know that once you get within that year mark, anything could happen. So it's a little bit stress on both sides. If the company loses the contract, then the new awarding company now has a time frame of when they have to execute. That means the government will say, awarded this contract, and you must start filling these positions at this date. Typically, what companies will do is they'll reach out to incumbents. That means former employees of the company that recently lost the contract, and they'll reach out to some of them to engage them about staying on the contract, not only working for the same customer, but now for a new company.
Yeah, we let's jump on into the incumbent hire. Right? That was one of your topics here too. One of the questions I have, or that a lot of people have, is when there's a recompete or people are bidding for the contracts, you hear the lowest bid, like the government wants to save the most money. That's what the government's about, trying to save money too.
Mm-hmm.
So does it always mean that when something happens that, like, if I'm a government contractor and it gets rebid, or I'm going to come and hire, am I going to get less money? I mean, is that always the case, or is it likely the case, or
Well, when it comes to that, if it's a new company, you're going to have to negotiate. They may go through an interview process, and you're going to have to interview for the position possibly. And you're going to have to negotiate a salary. It's no guarantee if you are part of the losing company and the new company engages you about an opportunity, it's no guarantee you're going to get the same salary. So that's part of the negotiation with the new company.
And probably some benefits might change too, because you're saying as an incumbent hire, you got a leg up because you're already doing the job, but you're dealing with a brand new partner, right?
Yes, exactly. So everything changes. The benefits will change over. This company may offer one thing, another company may offer something new. So you could be doing the same job, but just the whole process and the whole benefits package could totally change. That's part of the negotiating process.
So what else? Is there anything else about incumbent hires that we should know, Jeff?
When it comes to incumbent hires, I would say, don't be fearful of working for another company. When it comes to incumbents, usually those larger, massive contracts, they depend on those incumbent hires. It's just not enough time. It's just not enough resources to find people with that same skill set. And you want to use those same employees. The customer is happy with them. It's an easier transition. Everything works better for that. And that's kind of been the history of how contracts work. There's always going to be some incumbent hires, especially on some of those massive contracts where you're talking 400 and 500 people.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned too that it can be tough to find other people. I mean, I still live down by Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. We're not the hotbed of people like Northern Virginia might be up by Fort. I know you're up there by Fort Belvoir area and DC, Northern Virginia stuff. So they do, like you said, I talk to recruiters all the time. They do depend on the incumbents. Like that's the first place they're going to go is who's already there.
Exactly. They have cleared. They've already been cleared. They have access to that facility. They've been doing the job. In some cases, the new awarding company, they may have, say, for example, 80% of their hires are going to be incumbents, and then the other 20% could be their leadership, the program managers, so forth, who they particularly want to put in charge of those opportunities.
Yeah.
One thing to add to as well, Bob, if for example, if the company that loses the contract, many of them, and this is just for job seekers to not be so afraid of, defense contracting, because I've heard it many times. Service members have said, it's unstable. But I would tell you, many companies such as Peraton, we have a program called Family First. Mm-hmm. It's an internal program where whenever employees come off contract, whether contracts come to a complete end, we've lost the contract, or whatever it may be, we have a team of talent people that try to find them follow-on assignments within Peraton. It's a great program. It works really well. It's very successful, where the contract comes to an end, we just don't leave them hanging. We really do try to find them a follow-on assignment here at Peraton within our programs, because there's a lot of talented people that come off contracts, and companies really want to try to retain them, mm-hmm. To find other work for them to do. And so many people have moved on from different, doing a different type of role that they never thought they'd be able to do. I know people personally that moved out of talent acquisition, that moved on to other parts of Peraton, and they love the work because they just love the company. The transition is a lot easier when you're moving someone within the company.
Yeah.
Benefit stays the same. They know the culture. So that's a great thing that Peraton has.
I think that's certainly a benefit of a company that's got lots of opportunities, as opposed to just if they've got all their eggs in one basket, then,
yes.
You're tougher there. So this goes on to one of the other topics that we were going to talk about, was years left on contract. I think we've kind of danced around this a little bit, Jeff, because really when you're talking about things like rebids and incumbent hires, this is why you would want to know when you're about to get hired. This is a good question. Who do they ask? Do they ask the recruiter? How does the job seeker find out how many years are left on a contract?
Definitely. That should be one of the questions that you should ask, because you want to know that. If for example, a company can still generate a revenue even if there's 90 days left on the contract, right? And there's a position they may be filled, and a company may be looking to fill a position with 90 days left on the contract before it's up for the contract comes to an end, or it's up for rebid. Now that sounds a little unfair, but I've been with companies where they want to make sure that all those positions are filled all the way up until the end. But as a job seeker, especially those that are anybody really, you should always ask how many years are left on the contract. Now, I would say this is my personal opinion. If, say, for example, a company engages you and they say we have 1 year left on the contract, and you're a transitioning veteran and you're available and you interview for the position, you like it, I would even say take advantage of it. You like the opportunity, you like the company, the salary lines up. Don't worry if the contract has 1 year left. It doesn't mean that the contract is going to end, because remember, that particular company is likely going to compete for it. They're going to send in their contract. They're going to bid again to retain the contract. So, if, say for example, they're the prime on the contract. They have the contract, and they accept the position, and the company wins, and they get another 5 years. So now you have a great opportunity with a company that you apparently you wanted the position, and now you're moving on into possible another 5 years with that company. So, and many times I tell transition veterans, don't be so hesitant, don't be afraid if they have a year left on the contract. Engage, ask questions, and as I mentioned, that primary company is the front runner to win that recompete.
So, do some companies keep the same contract for like decades?
It has happened. There's been
Yeah.
many companies. I mean, Peraton has companies that we've won and that we've constantly keep winning on recompete.
Yeah.
Because you're doing a good job. If you're doing a great job and the customer is happy with your work, the type of employees that you're providing, you're coming up with creative ways to help them accomplish their task and their missions, and you're competitive with your pricing, then they are, as I mentioned, they're usually the front runners to win that contract again for additional years.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great tip because I know when I talk to transitioning veterans, I remember when I was coming out, the search for stability. Because especially if you retired from the military, for example, even if you didn't though, the military is such a stable. First into 15th, you're going to get a paycheck. Like you really just feel secure. And then all of a sudden you get out and you're like, oh my God, I don't feel secure. I don't know what's going on. So you're looking for some of that security, and that lack of security sometimes, or the perceived lack of security, is what might scare people off from the contract. So what you're saying is, don't be scared of the fact the contract might be in, but asking the questions to see how long they've been doing it, because you can find stability even in the government contracting space.
Yes, and even Bob, even if you stay with the company for 1 year, the last year of the contract, and you do an excellent job, you do great work, you are now an incumbent. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of the front runner to be possibly contacted about that opportunity, rather than someone that's not on that particular contract. So there's two benefits to it.
Yeah,
you're an incumbent, and then you're with a company that could possibly win that, beyond that, be part of that contract extension as far as winning an award.
That's some great tips and great advice and great explanation too. Last term we were going to talk about today is contingent offer. This is something that people hear a lot when they're getting out. They don't know what it means. They don't know, should I accept it? Should I not accept it? If I do accept it, what happens? This is one of those things where it's a term that people know, but the question is, do they understand? And do they understand what it means to them practically? So help us learn more about contingent offer, Jeff.
Well, a contingent offer, it's not a full bona fide offer letter. It's contingent upon certain things. For example, number one, if the company wins the award, those are things. Part of them giving you a contingent offer is making sure that you are within their price point as well. So they're going to discuss possibly a salary range, and they're going to make sure that you're comfortable with it. So when if you received a contingent offer, you need to continue your job search, because it is not a job. It's contingent upon some things. And so many times I've had transitioning veterans say, I already got a job offer. And I ask, well, when do you transition? And they say, I don't get out for another 6 months. And my next question is there a start date? And usually it's like, no, but I do have an offer. So that contingent offer is contingent about contract awards. Even when they are awarded the contract, they'll come back to you, and with the most of the time, they're going to stick to that number that's on that, on that particular award that they've sent to you. If you have a job already and you get an offer with a contingent offer, don't quit your current job, because it's still contingent upon some things. So you don't want to resign yet.
So it could be contingent on something just like getting your clearance set up too, right? Like getting it passed over, or
because you could accept a contingent offer, and they may even say, hey, it's all contingent upon your clearance crossover. You may be going from one agency to another, and they're going to go through their process of screenings, because we all know all agencies don't accept each other's clearances. So part of it is they're going to go through their process, and it could take 45 days, it could take 60 days, it could, never know how long it's going to take. So you could actually accept an offer, and they say, well, there was a problem with your clearance, or whatever it may be, or you failed your poly. And part of being, an actual offer being extended to you and a start date is you passing a polygraph exam. And so sometimes people don't always pass their poly, and sometimes they don't always pass it the first time. So part of a contingency could be on that as well. So you want to make sure that all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed, and you have an actual start date. And you ask the recruiters, are there any issues before I give my 2-week notice?
Yeah.
So you definitely want to make sure that you ask all those questions before you move on a contingent offer.
So the real superstar transitioning veteran, if you're somebody who's getting out 3 months from now, but you've already got 4 contingent offers, that's a good sign, right? You're in the driver's seat there, and then it just depends on. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now it just kind of depends on which one do you want to take, which might be determined about the official start date.
Yes.
Or maybe the one's going to pay more than the other, but you've got to make the determination which one you're going to choose. Because once you choose, do you need to then tell everybody that you took a contingent offer from and say, hey, I'm off the list now, or what happens to those things?
If you've started another position, it is a good courtesy to let those other companies know that you're no longer available. You've accepted another offer. It's not new to them. They understand that you have to do what's best for you. That's a hard offer. You've actually got a position that have started already. So that's a good thing. And what they'll do is they'll keep you in mind for future opportunities as well. So just make sure it's good to keep those relations in place with whatever you are engaging.
If you got a contingent offer, then you were doing a lot of things right.
Exactly. Exactly.
You had the skills, you had the person, the cultural fit for the organization. You had gone through all those things. So you've got a lot of stuff, and you've got a good, and as long as you don't burn that bridge, because I talk to recruiters at job fairs all the time, and they'll say, yeah, I've got these people in this contingent, and you're kind of sweating it a little bit. Like they can't wait for the award to get done, or so they can just land this fish. You know what I'm saying?
And that's normal, and they understand that people have to set roles because they have bills to pay, and many times there is a delay. I mean, there's times where a contract award date has been set, and that particular, the award date could be extended for whatever. The government can say, well, it was supposed to be awarded in November, but now it's going to be awarded in January. So you'll be notified. And then when it's awarded,
sounds like early 2025 to me.
Yeah, and so that happens a lot. When it comes to sometimes when companies win it, and then they have an execution date. So that may be another, 45 to 60 days. And so as a job seeker, you just may not be able to go 90 days without being, to work. And so
yeah, well, it's always good to know. And I think one of the things we love getting across to people at these Military Mondays is recruiters are real people, and they understand. And a lot of the recruiters in the defense contracting industry have stayed in this industry, so they know what's going on. They've seen this kind of stuff happen. They're in it for the long haul. They want good relationships. They're not trying to just take advantage of you. But if you're honest with them, and good things are going to happen. Yeah,
and they're part of the process too, Bob. I would tell you some contracts, if they're massive, they may have to hire some additional staffing people. While that contract is going on. Contract comes to an end, it's reduced, they no longer have it, they may have to reduce their staffing. So we're part of it too, Bob. Many of the recruiters, they're part of contract awards. So they're not just always just overhead recruiters. They could be part of that staffing group where they had to bump up to actually execute and find those people.
Yeah. Well, speaking of meeting recruiters and things like that, we're getting close to our end here. I just want to let everybody know out there, a couple of job fairs coming up. We got a virtual job fair going on tomorrow, which this event is actually maxed out on the participation part. But if you're a job seeker and you register, your resume will still go to all the companies who are going to be there. But because it's virtual, we can only get so many people to chat with folks. It's already hit its max as far as that goes for job seekers. We have an in-person event, though, coming up in a couple of weeks out in Dulles, Virginia. This is just for CI and full scope polys. Plenty of people can come to this one because it's got a lot of space. We got a whole bunch of companies there, one of which is Peraton, actually, Jeff.
Yes, we will definitely be there. So job seekers, if you have a poly, CI poly, is it full scope poly or just CI? And
both, either CI or full scope.
Full scope poly. Our recruiters will be on hand. Our recruiter team they're there engaging you with their opportunities, ready to communicate extended contingent offers immediately. So it's a very competitive job fair. So Peraton recruiters they're definitely ready to engage, bring copies of your resume, because it's only a small population of people with these levels of clearances, and many of our competitors are there, and so everybody's moving at a pretty lightning fast pace to snag good candidates.
Yeah, Jeff won't be there because he's busy talking to veterans everywhere. I will be there though. So if you're here watching us today and you happen to have a polygraph and you attend that job fair in person, swing by and say hello to me. Say hi to the Peraton folks. Like Jeff said, there's real people out there really trying to make connections, and so that's going to be a great event. Last thing, I just want to let everybody know, Jeff, if they want to reach out to you, they can find you on LinkedIn. I know we've tagged you on the LinkedIn stuff. Yes. If you're seeing this via YouTube or something else later on. He's on LinkedIn, but it's Jeff Carson Recruiter. They can hit you up. Is that right?
That's right. They can, Bob. I'm always available to connect with, to advise, and just if you have interest in the opportunities at Peraton, we have a military veteran team, myself and two of my colleagues, and our job is to try to connect veteran job seekers to opportunities at Peraton and just provide advice if you have any questions and so forth, such as what we talked about today.
Well, Jeff, man, I love talking to you. You're always a straight shooter. You always bring good advice. Obviously, you love Peraton and you love to talk about Peraton, but you also are just really passionate about helping people out as well, especially veterans. So I want to thank you for joining us today. And that's really all we've got, folks. We just about 1 minute over our 30 minutes, so we did pretty good. But Jeff, you want to say goodbye to everybody?
Thanks, everybody. So we hope you enjoyed the session. Like Bob said, you feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about anything.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye, guys.